Hello. I am starting the midterm podcast. Gonna look at this on YouTube. See if we have anybody here. Podcast. Gonna look at this on YouTube. Okay, can you hear me? If anybody is here, please type your name. Oh, 4 viewers. Okay. I was having trouble with, oh, yep, Sally, Heather, awesome. Okay. There is a difference between the Hangouts on air, so I'm going to try to mute this. Don't turn the microphone off. I had to figure this out last time, so I'm still trying to work on, I think, I mute this. Okay, can you guys still hear me? If you can hear me, please say, I can hear you. Okay, thank you. Okay. Great. All right, so tonight we are talking about the midterm exam, which is coming up starting tomorrow. And I also want to just speak to a little bit of assertive messages and a few other things that are coming up in the class. So if you have questions as they come, please type them into the chat box, and we'll go from there. Oh gosh, like there is definitely a lag on my computer with what I'm seeing and what I'm saying, so it's a little off, but all right. So the first thing that I want to just point out is that the midterm opens tomorrow, but it closes on Saturday. So it's a smaller window than the regular assignments. And part of that is to limit the potential for cheating and just a best practice that's suggested for online classes. So that's why that is that way. So please make sure that you have a plan to take the midterm. Excuse me. You will have 90 minutes to take the midterm. And once you log in to start it, if you log out or shut down your computer or stop for any reason, it will cut you out of the test and you cannot reopen it. If you have a technical difficulty and you need to email me about it, do it as soon as possible and I'll try to work with you, but it's highly unlikely that you won't get a chance to reopen that test. So please make sure you have a strong internet connection, a fully power batteried computer, and all those types of things. So if you need to go to a testing center or to a library or somewhere that is more reliable, I encourage you to do that. Some students have difficulty with their internet at home or various things. So you want something that's secure. Secondly, in some online classes, students are required to go to the testing center to take their midterms or final exams. I do not require you to do that. So you can take it from the comfort of your own home in your pajamas or wherever you want to be, and that is fine. In saying that, you are also allowed to use whatever resources that you want other than another person to take your test. So I do not want you taking your test together as a friend, comparing notes, telling each other what the questions were, things like that. That would be considered cheating. But you are allowed to use your textbook. You are allowed to use notes, PowerPoints, things that you have gained from the class already. And I actually recommend you doing that. However, I still think that you need to study because you are timed, and if you have to look up every question, you're going to get frazzled and they're not in any order. So you're going to be jumping all over your textbook, and that's going to be really confusing to you. So I do recommend you studying, make sure that you highlight, have some key terms already kind of posted throughout your book or your notes on what you think you're going to find. I also recommend going back and looking at your quizzes. Some of the questions are going to be identical to things that you've seen on previous quizzes, so you will have some repeat questions. You will also see concepts repeated from assignments. For example, the cultural dimensions assignment, where you had the matching with the different cultures and the qualities like individualism, collectivism, high-low power, that type of thing. You'll see some questions around that on the midterm, and so you want to make sure that you're understanding those. And the examples are not going to be purely definition, they're going to be applications. So you're going to have to kind of understand. If I were to say something like, Erin was wanting to approach her professor about a paper because she was highly anxious about having clear directions about how to complete the assignment. The assignment, the description the professor gave her was open-ended. Erin would be most likely from which cultural perspective? So you could see in that example that she would be from a low ambiguity tolerant perspective. And so that's the type of question that you would see in that area. Does anybody have any questions about that specific kind of concept, the cultural dimensions? How many questions total for the midterm? Okay, I believe there's 45 questions, maybe 47 questions. I can go in and look real quick. I think it says in there. I can't remember. It's around 50 questions. I cannot remember specifically how many questions total, but I think around 50 questions for the midterm. And they're all true, false, and multiple choice, except for one question is a short answer question. And since you are here for the podcast, I'll tell you what it is. For the short answer question, you will need to understand the different types of noise that can impact relationships. So the differences between psychological, physiological, semantic, and physical noise. So you'll need to define each of those, give me an example of each of those. So make sure that when you're doing the test that you answer all of the components of that question. That's the biggest challenge that students have had previously, is just not addressing a part of one of the questions on the exam. You will have to wait. You won't get immediate feedback on the exam because I do have to grade that essay question, but the exam will be graded fairly quickly after you are done taking it. Any other questions about the exam? Okay, so another thing that you want to consider when taking the exam is really understanding the way to create assertive messages. So if you are turning in your iMessage assignment tonight, and you are able to, I would wait until you get feedback from me on how you did on that assignment before you take the exam, because you will see a couple questions about assertiveness and constructing iMessages and choosing effective assertive messages on the exam. And if you're not on target with that, or you're having some misunderstandings around that, then you may miss those questions on the exam. So if you are concerned about that, email me and I'll try to grade your assignment as soon as I can. I usually do grade them within a day or two of getting all of the assignments turned in, but sometimes it takes me a little bit longer. So I do want to make sure that you have that feedback prior to taking the exam. Does anybody have any questions about the assertive messages? Okay, I do want to talk a little bit about, let me see, let me pause there and see if there's any other questions about the exam. The exam, my goal for the exam is not to mess you up. All right, so let's see. Not about that sort of messages, but there is a way to retake president. Unfortunately, no, I don't think so. I have tried to reopen quizzes in Blackboard or to figure out how to show you the feedback on the quizzes, and it is not straightforward in the technical behind the scenes part. So I do not believe you can retake any of the quizzes at this point. You should be able to see what you missed and what the correct answer is and what answer you put on the quiz. So if one of you would go and check for one of the quizzes and see if that's the case when you click on your quiz and what you see as feedback, that would be great. And if it's not the case, I can try to fix that part, because I think I can make that happen. But I think reopening the quiz, I might be able to do that. I think it's going to take too long before your exams to be able to do that. I'm sorry. But if you have been following along with the quizzes, then you know kind of the types of questions that are on there, and they're going to be similar. There will be a few that might be a little bit different, but for the most part, that's what I'm looking for the exam. And similar to the quizzes, like if you were taking the exam with other people, there's a large pool of questions and they'll be randomly selected for each exam. So you're not going to have the exact same exam as the other people in the class. So it makes it a little bit harder to cheat as well. So that's helpful for me, at least. I think another concept to look at are the different listening challenge, or sorry, not listening challenges. I don't know where my textbook, oh, here it is. Here's my textbook. Okay, assignment. Yes, Sally, the I statements will be picking the best iMessage out of a set of iMessages, or picking out what's wrong with the message that you see, or describe, like, it's all those are all multiple choice, and so you will get some statements and try to figure out which one's the best. In chapter 5. Yes. So there is there's a little table 5.4 in chapter 5 on page 117 that is about essential verbal message guidelines. I would recommend looking at that, and it kind of helps look at some of the specific problems that people have on verbal messages. You'll probably see some questions around that and some examples that go along with that. So most of the questions I think that are problematic for students are when it's not just a definition, but an application. So that's where the study needs to come in, is being able to think of how you would apply some of the terminology. Trying to think what else. Yeah, similarly in chapter 3 with perception, there's some perception challenges that you'll see. And so those start an impression formation on page 61 and go through the page 68 or 69. And so those are helpful as well. Okay, all quizzes are open to view correct answers except the one due by. Okay, good. Yeah, because you can't see the correct answers until after the submission deadline. So that's great. So you should be able to see what you missed and things like that. So after tonight, you'll be able to see chapter 5 quiz also. Sally, can you help Heather with that question? Because I don't exactly know. I think it's in your My Grades in the feedback, but I'm not 100% sure. Yep. See, I'm learning now about the use of Blackboard as a student. Since I'm an instructor, sometimes it's hard to know exactly what you all see and the clicks that you need to make. So that is great to know. Thank you very much for that, Sally. Okay, any other questions about the midterm? Another thing that is important to remember is that this week you also have the midterm reflection blog that is available. And I would love to see some students do a video post. It's not that hard. You just talk into your phone or your iPad or your computer and then load your video up to YouTube, and then you can post it. I just think it would give a personal touch to seeing some of you and hearing your voice in connection with what you're learning, and would probably be helpful for some of your classmates as well. Just like I'm sitting here talking to you right now, it's a little bit different than writing all of this out in a paper, but you are welcome to do just the written essay if that is what you want to do. I am totally fine with that. It's one of the options. You won't get any points off for that or anything. I just want to encourage some people who might be thinking about doing that option to try to do it. I also would encourage you to read and give feedback to some of your classmates, because you might see that you connect with some of them, that you have similarities, and that you can encourage one another in this class. I think sometimes when we get focused on the exam, we're all about like knowing the terminology and how if we're gonna get the right answer and things like that. But if you are able to get all the right answers on the test, but you can't actually apply the material to your life, then this class isn't really helping you out very much. I mean, it might help your GPA, but it won't help your relationships, and that's more important to me as your instructor, is being able to really adjust. So I would just encourage you to take the time to really think about how you want to improve your relationships, and in what context you want to do that, whether it's at work or romance or with your family or friendship relationship, that are some specific ways that you can grow. Any questions about it? Okay, so I will probably post another short video announcement tomorrow, just after kind of going through your attendance and reading all of the iMessage assignments from this week. But I've really enjoyed reading those, and especially the essays about people understanding who they are and what type of passive or aggressive or assertive communication they have, especially when people are honest about their difficulties. And sometimes this is one of the hardest things to adjust, and it takes a lot of practice, and it feels really uncomfortable when you're trying to adjust your habits in communication. So I just want to encourage you to take on some of those new habits, and to remember that the formula for an iMessage is flexible, that it is the components of the assertive messages, using I statements, avoiding you messages, describing the behavior, describing the consequence, the result, giving an opportunity to understand the other person, that we really want to encourage. And it doesn't have to be like this I feel if so, that then. It doesn't have to be so clear cut, because sometimes that can feel forced in a relationship. But sometimes that's the best place to start, because we don't really know where to go from there, and it can take us a while to get more nuanced in our communication with others. So that is great. Any other questions at this point? Okay, so I'm gonna just talk about one last thing, which is that your group project assignments open the week after the final exam. And I have just finished finalizing your groups for your group project. So you can see who is in your groups by going to your major projects folder and looking at the document that I just added to the group projects link. But next lesson, you will be able to find all of that information about the first post to your group project and things like that, and getting started on working together. As I found from the beginning of the semester, I got a lot of questions on that syllabus assignment about what are the expectations for communication in a group project in an online class. And so I know that there is anxiety already about having to do a group project and what that's going to mean for you. And so just know that I am aware of that, and I acknowledge that, and I know that this is hard. And I will post a lot of helpful tips throughout the project. But the best thing that I have found is when groups either nominate or a clear leader emerges in the group. Not a leader that takes on all of the stress of the project and tells everyone what to do, or that it all falls on them, but somebody that helps to organize the way that the group is communicating, helps to set a timeline and guidelines for getting feedback from other people, and really works to use their assertiveness to make sure that everybody's included, heard, and reached out to in the project. And so chances are, if you're somebody watching this podcast at 9:30 at night, you might be somebody that wants to make sure your group does well. So think about what it would be like for you to step up into that role, not to take on the project, but to help to navigate some of those challenges. You may also want to encourage someone else in your group to do that if it seems like they're posting and they're seeming on top of things. Just say, hey, would you kind of help organize some of the process with that? And so that's one of the ways that groups have been most effective. The other thing that has helped groups the most is having a very clear plan for communication. So some groups have like 20 different threads in their discussion board, and it's really hard for group members to know who's posting what and when and where they're supposed to be doing things. Some are using file exchange and some are not. And so having an upfront kind of method for communicating with your group is effective. You have the opportunity to do a blog, to do a wiki, to use the file exchange, to do a discussion board. All of those things are functions through Blackboard. And you also have the opportunity to go off Blackboard and use Google Docs or a group text message if that's something that your group decides to do. Some groups decide to do something like this where they do get Google Hangouts on air and they do kind of a webcast type of interaction with one another. And so you're welcome to do that. Just know that if you go off of Blackboard when you are working on the group project, I can't see the interaction. So it's all off of kind of like trust of who says what about participation. So that's the only kind of kink that can come from not communicating through Blackboard. But as long as everybody's on the same page and knows how to do those things and is in agreement with that, then you're welcome to use any other functions that you would like to. Some people don't feel comfortable sharing their phone numbers and personal email addresses, and so that is to be respected. You all have access to your WakeTech email addresses, and you should be checking them regularly anyways. And so using those for group messages is perfectly legitimate if you don't feel comfortable sharing your personal information with other people. Some people feel very comfortable and do Facebook groups or other groups that connect them to very personal parts of their life. So again, it's up to you. I hope also that your group finds the project interesting and is able to put effort into something that makes you excited about the final product of that project. And if at any time you feel anxious or worried about your group, just email me and let me know, and we will talk about that. I'm sure that I'll do another webcast in the middle of that group project assignment to take questions and encourage you through that process as well. So I think that's all that I wanted to cover tonight. Let me know if you have any further questions, and I'll hang out here for a few more minutes. Okay, so I just got an email asking some questions about needing to create a YouTube channel to post and view the webcast. I'm not sure about that. I have a YouTube channel, and so I think mine just goes through Google. So I think if you have a Google account, then you can log in and chat, but I'm not sure about that. I'm going to answer the other question that I got through email offline also. Okay, yes, you do need to create a YouTube channel in order to participate. Okay. Really? Oh, good. It's linked to the Google account. Oh, great. I'm glad that you figured it out, Janine. Yeah, so since you have a YouTube channel now, when you go to create your reflective video, if you do it on your phone or your iPad, you can just upload it to YouTube from your device and it'll go straight to your channel, and then you would post that link or embed that link in the blog. Does that make sense about doing the reflective video? So like when I make the announcement videos for the class, I talk into my phone, great. And then I just hit the like upload button. Yes, you can make it. So the blog for the class is available for your classmates to see. So myself and your classmates. You can make your YouTube channel private so that other people that you do not share the link with cannot see your video. You just go into the settings and make sure that you have it linked that way. So only people that you send the link to can access your video. But because of the nature of the assignment, it is a blog. So the 60 people in the class would be able to see it, but most likely about 10 or 15 of your classmates would click on it and watch it because you're not required to read everybody else's posts. And so it would only be people that were interested in looking at your video. And they shouldn't have the capacity to share that video with other people outside of this class. And you also have the option to take the video down after the assignment's due. So you can delete it after I grade your assignment if you don't want other people to find it. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Great. Glad this was helpful. Thank you for helping each other also. I really appreciate that. So I will end the podcast here. If you have any other questions, feel free to email me and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Have a good night.